Hi, I'm Jane Hillsdon, marketing consultant and founder of Dragonfly Marketing. Welcome to this episode of the How to Do Marketing Show, a no-nonsense podcast about marketing for small business. It's our mission at Dragonfly Marketing to put marketing on the agenda for every regionally based small business in Australia. Why? Because we know that when marketing is done properly, it can help your business grow. We believe small businesses are the backbone of our nation. When your business grows, it benefits not only you and your family, it benefits your whole community. Small businesses create a vibrant and connected economy. We employ local people, we donate to local charities, and we work together to build resilient and thriving regional communities. The How to Do Marketing Show is a podcast just for you and your small business. Bursting with marketing insight and information, this show will be a fabulous resource to help you know all there is to know about the topic of marketing for small business. There are many small businesses that have had their plans interrupted this year by COVID. Printhie Wines, based in Orange, New South Wales, is no exception. Except not only have they had to deal with COVID this year, they were actually coming right off the back of dealing with severe drought that had lasted for a very long time, and then the bushfires that engulfed parts of New South Wales over this summer. Emily Swift joined her husband in their family business in 2018 as their marketing manager. Having worked as a strategic marketer in the agribusiness and utilities sectors for over 20 years, she made the leap into this small business just in time to have to navigate possibly one of the toughest years that the winery had faced. In this interview with Em, we find out all about the world of wine marketing. We talk about the power of harnessing strategic local partnerships and about thinking quickly in a crisis to produce some amazing marketing results. Enjoy. Welcome to the How to Do Marketing Show, Emily.
Oh, thank you, Jane. It's great to be here. Looking forward to it.
It's great to have you. And as I said in the introduction, you and I go way back. We first met at Charles Sturt University. You were studying comms and I was studying marketing. And I think we both shared the subject of advertising, if I remember correctly.
We did, yes. I do remember that. Absolutely. Fun days.
Yes. And we've both followed our careers in marketing. And now I am going to ask you so many questions about the dream job that I always wanted to have, Em. I always pictured myself in a role of wine marketing. So I'd love for you to shed some light on this career, and I'm sure you will. So firstly, let's deep dive into that. I always envisaged, and it could be true, that wine marketing was this super glamorous and super cultured and really fun industry to be in. I remember when I was kind of lost with marketing and I didn't know which path to take. This was years and years ago. And I thought, what am I passionate about? And I came up with wine and fashion. So I went down one rabbit hole of kind of getting into that wine, because I thought it's, we love to drink it. It's a great product. It seems like lots of fun and people have lots of fun when they drink it. But I also love the nuances and the complexities about the product. Like, it's such an incredible product range to get your head around. And, the romance and the beauty of the vineyards and the origins, in France and Italy and all the rest. Like, it just has so much storytelling that can kind of accompany this product and the brands that go with us. But tell us, is wine marketing as glamorous and as fun-filled as it seems?
Look, and there's still time for you too if you want to get into wine marketing. Look, it's certainly fun. Like you said, it's a fabulous product. And it's so attached to those things like food and events and experiences and these great lifestyle activities. But I'd probably not go so far as to say it's super glamorous. I'm sure somewhere in the world there's a super glamorous wine marketing job. But, unfortunately, you know, something to make something look glamorous, it takes a lot of, you know, not so glamorous work.
Yes.
And look, you know, in part of my role, I still have to go out and clean the toilets at the cellar door and make wine deliveries. So it's not.
Yeah, not so glamorous.
It's yeah, but there is that beautiful romance about the product, and it is a lot of fun, you know, thinking up how you can tell your story, because you do understand that for a lot of people, drinking wine is an escape. It's part of these beautiful visions of vineyards and the overseas and holidays and spending time with friends. So it is a fun product to work with in terms of that. Like, there's a lot of scope to play with, and if you can tap into that, you know, that feeling of romance and that aspirational lifestyle, then, you know, you can do some really great stuff.
Yeah. And I can completely see that. And I guess to put it into context for our listeners, it's probably not every wine marketer that has to go and clean the toilets. It's just because you work as part of a family-run business and vineyard. So whenever you work for a small business, there's a lot of our small business, you know, owners and listeners would understand, is you sometimes wear many hats. But I imagine, you know, if you're in a corporate marketing role and working for, you know, Moet and Chandon, or, you know, someone like that, perhaps cleaning toilets is
let's put that caveat in there, definitely on the PD for everyone.
Part of it. But I think that's the best thing about working for small business, is that every now and again you get down to the cold face, you understand how the business functions and and all of the certain things that need to happen in order for your marketing to actually, you know, drive results. So good. Okay, so it's definitely as fun and mostly glamorous, but occasionally requires some, you know, wearing of different hats. Okay, good. So when it comes to planning out your marketing for the year or the quarter, what are some of the considerations that you need to think through before deciding what marketing activity that you'll invest in?
Oh, look, there's some really basic stuff that you just put in automatically. So, you know, for any wine marketing person, you got to look at, you know, your product. When are the bottling dates? You know, when is there a new wine being released? When's that coming out? And things like wine shows, you know, cross your fingers, you're going to have a good story to tell from that. And also wine days are becoming a bigger thing, you know, like, you know, it's Chardonnay Day or, and look, a Shiraz Day was just introduced this year. Because, you know, we realised that there wasn't really an Australian Shiraz Day. So there were several of us that got on board with that and started promoting it, because you can put a marketing, you know, campaign around that. You know, you might have a special pack for Shiraz Day that you can promote in the lead up to it. So they're just some really good staple markers to put in your calendar. But for us, we've also got sponsorships. So we're the official wine partner for the New South Wales Swifts netball team. So for us, that's a seasonal activity as well that we, you know, put in the calendar, and we've got to work out our activities around that we can, you know, get the best value out of that sponsorship. So yeah, the biggest consideration for us is that, you know, we have a tight budget like lots of other small businesses. So for me, I try and think about what free media we can get. Like, free media is our best friend. So, and part of that is, you know, still using traditional media releases, but also looking at pinpointing those micro-influencers. And part of that, I think, is really building relationships with other like-minded complementary brands, so that you can pick up some social media opportunities in there and mentions. And I think that's a really important component of that, is forming those relationships. Other things, look, we're using more and more Facebook and Instagram advertising. You know, look, it's cost effective, incredibly targeted, and it's quick to implement. And look, if you make a mistake, it's easy to fix. So it's such a adaptable and cost-effective channel to use. Have to say, I've been upskilling in that area a little bit to be honest. Like from previous corporate roles, I've had the luxury of having a digital team. You know, we might do all the strategy and the creative around it and the planning, but I've had a digital team to go and actually implement it.
Yeah.
And a media planning agency to actually go and book those ads. So I've been upskilling myself because, you know, I'm the one doing that now. And, you know, I've really enjoyed that because it's just given me even greater insight into how to really use those channels. So, and it's just shown me actually how easy it is to get out there on a pretty minimal budget to get your brand out there on those platforms. And also, you know, when I'm doing my planning, I also need to consider that we have different target markets.
Yes.
You know, while we do have several product lines, so we have different target markets for each of those. And our wine club is a target market on its own. So, you know, when I'm going through working out the marketing, I've got to work out how I'm talking to each of those target groups and, you know, what touch points, you know, how we're talking to them at each of those touch points. So there's a fair bit that goes into it. And it's not probably unlike any other product. But it's just the nuances, I guess, in terms of, you know, some of those timings around product releases and things like that.
That's really interesting. And I want to pick up on something that you mentioned around the micro-influencers because a couple of weeks ago, we heard from a guy called Neil Schaefer who specialises in influencer marketing. And he essentially, I guess, kind of gave us more perspective about the real potential that there is with these with this influencer marketing kind of tactic. And he actually mentioned nano influencers. And he said, you know, there's plenty of influencers, and I'm saying, you know, doing the little quotation marks with my fingers there, that we can tap into that sometimes are a hell of a lot more effective than tapping into, you know, these macro influencers that have, you know, 1 million followers or whatever. These nano influencers can have like a super engaged audience that matches your own, and that brand alignment seems like a really logical kind of fusion. How, in terms of micro influencers, how do you incorporate them into your marketing?
And I think, you know, there is just to touch on, the major, you know, the really big influencers compared to the nano and the micro influencers. I think there's been a bit of a trend, well, from what I'm seeing, a much bigger trend to now focus on those important micro influencers, because I think we're all getting a little bit skeptical. We understand now that those large influencers are being paid and they don't necessarily love the product. Yes. You know, I think the micro influencers, it really does feel more like it's the word of mouth. You know, they're actually like that product, or they wouldn't bother promoting it, because quite often they're not being paid for it. It's just, you know, I actually really love that product and I want to talk about it. So believe it more. Yes. And whilst you might get that mass coverage, you get so much more value and trust out of it than potentially if you've paid, you know, a large influencer. But I also think if you can find that perfect influencer that has a mass following and it is absolutely perfect for your product, then, you know, it probably is worthwhile paying the money. Yes. So I think there's definitely a spot for all of them. But for us right now, you know, those smaller influencers are really important to us. And we like to kind of choose people that have a very similar outlook, I think, in terms of their brand. And we're all about authenticity and being honest and you know, just trying to show our true story. So if we can pick up that another brand is very much doing that, and, you know, also, you know, are obviously interested in wine, and we can see that, there could be a nice partnership. And I literally just start chatting to them. And, you know, seeing if, they're on the same page and would they be interested. And look, you know, you've just got to put yourself out there and ask the question to to these
Yeah.
guys. Some of them think it's great, and look, you will get knockbacks, but that's just part of it. Like, you can't give up and just keep going out. And we've been having some great responses to that. So
and
it's
that's
a very powerful medium to.
And I think that's testament to the brand that you've built as well, and the products that you sell, because Printhie Vineyards is now quite an established brand, and it's a premium brand, and it has some premium products. It has some fantastic products. You've won a lot of awards for your products. So in terms of actually reaching out to some of these like-minded and aligned, micro-influencers, a lot of them would be quite thrilled to work with you, particularly if they kind of see themselves as fitting into that category, because you've built that brand and you've gone to the effort of actually building that product and that brand around, and the story, I guess, around what you do. So I think that makes it easier for any partnership opportunity to be able to actually reach out and get a positive response. And yeah, sure, there might be some people that knock you back, but generally that might just be because, well, A, they might not see the value in that partnership, but two, it might not just be the right time. They might not be able to get their head around, how they're actually going to make this work for you all, or it just could be all too hard for them.
Oh, that's right. And look, sometimes it's, they just, I think they've got, lots of stuff going on, and then you just go, well, they're not the right person.
Yep. And that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. But I think the important thing is you don't give up. You keep going, because there are like-minded people out there that are perfect for your brand. So
that's right. Yeah. Awesome. So let's talk about your content marketing. So you've mentioned that you have a few different target audiences for the different wines that you sell. So obviously you've got a sparkling wine range, and you've got some award-winning premium products in that range. And then you've got like a kind of table drinking, weeknight kind of, and I won't call it quaffing wine because it's not really, like, it's still a $16 to $20 or more bottle of wine. Then you've got your red drinkers and your white drinkers and your party drinkers. And then, as you said, you've got your wine club membership, which is a completely different product offering and probably a different mindset. I imagine that there are some commonalities that thread between all of those different target audience. But in terms of that content marketing, how do you decide what to talk about to engage each audience and ultimately sell each of those products?
Yeah, look, it's interesting, and I think there's what's the old 80-20 ratio of, tell your story 80% of the time and sell 20% of the time. But to be honest, I don't sit down and think about that ratio too much at all, because I do, above all else, prioritize our storytelling.
Right.
And Simon Sinek's famous quote that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yes.
And for us, that's our real story, is that we have that passion for our wine, and the guys just love working in the vineyards, and there is a thrill for them around creating a wine that is enjoyed. So and look, they've tended some of those vines for 20 years and they know them individually. So it really is a deeply personal story. And they're the stories that get the most engagement, especially the ones around Ed and Dave, who are the brothers that run the business. Any, post or story around them gets the greatest engagement. So I do prioritize those. And then it's interesting, some of the other stories just about, the dogs that we have quite a few, well, not quite a few, there's 3 winery dogs, we term them, and people love hearing about the dogs.
Wow.
And then they also, I found, love hearing about the third generation coming through, the children. And, we've started doing little profiles on them. Obviously being conscious of not giving too much information away, but people really,
these are your own children, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
But people love seeing that very personal side.
Yeah.
And then you do mix in a bit of this is a new product, or this product's just got an award. And actually our stories around awards do get quite a lot of engagement as well.
Yeah.
but it does just come back to people want to know
people.
who you are and
Yeah.
why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you
So-
find that do you have the target audience that wants to know about the Terra Noir and the vintage and the, I don't know, the science behind the winemaking and the nuances of the particular seasons and those sorts of things? Do you have that market as well that you need to cater for?
Oh, definitely. There are the people who want to know the technical aspects.
Yeah.
And I am actually conscious not to put too much of that info in social media because I know
it'll be too highbrow for the general.
Yes, and it is, like we touched on earlier, it's more about the lifestyle and that people love and just seeing the vineyards and things, whereas we certainly do cater for those who would like more knowledge through other channels. We put more information into our EDMs around, if
your
we've got a new release, we like to go into detail about it. So there's certainly, we have to be mindful that, yes, we have people who are just more interested in the aspirational, but we've certainly got, some great customers who are really interested in, exactly what went in to the development of that wine. How long was it in oak? Was it new oak? Was it old oak? Was it French or, American oak? So we certainly have to cater for that as well, but be mindful that we've just got to balance that out.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And during the COVID lockdown period earlier this year, I personally noticed a lot of the Printhie marketing dropping into my Facebook feed, which I loved. Can you talk us through how you use Facebook and I imagine Instagram as one of your promotional channels? Particularly, it seemed like you were doing a lot of stuff around running live events and live tastings and things. So can you talk us through what you were doing with that?
So look, it was an interesting, and I probably should go back a couple of steps, how we found ourselves in that position. Yes, it was definitely COVID lockdown, but prior to that, 2020 was already a pretty tough year for us. We'd had several years of drought, yields were low. Quite a few of the vineyards around us had already run out of water. We were micromanaging our water and, picking the absolute perfect time to water the vineyard to get the grapes through. And we were really thrilled with the quality of our grapes for the year. And then we did some final testing, and it was at that point that we suddenly realised we had smoke taint in the vineyards. So we actually didn't pick a single grape this year. And that has a 2-year impact on the business. So not only because we also contract wine make, not only was the scale of that, much decreased, but we also don't have any wine for 2020. So we thought that was the bad start to the year. And then COVID hit and we lost 70% of our business overnight in terms of cellar door closing and restaurants closing. So that had a flow-on effect to us. So look, to be honest, there would have been about a week there where we were kind of wondering, what the hell we're going to do. And, so many other, wineries and cellar doors and so many other businesses were impacted that way as well. So, but then I think over a glass of wine one night, I was like, well, we've just got to find the opportunities in this situation. We need to turn this around. We can't just curl up in a ball and go, what the hell are we going to do? Yeah, too hard.
Yeah.
So I, in a team meeting, I just said to the guys, I was like, right, we're going to give some virtual tastings a go. I want you guys in front of the camera and we're just going to talk about the wine. We've just got to put ourselves out there. So we did a test run. And there's sort of 4 in the core team and, they all interacted really well. And we got great engagement and views just from that. And then we thought, right, we're going to now schedule this in Friday, 4 p.m. And we put together a schedule of the wines so that you could pre-order. So you would have the wine for a 3-week period. So for 3 weeks, In one pack, you had the wine that we were tasting, and then we would put out the next pack. And it was really great. We were amazed that we ended up with some really loyal customers who joined in every week, rain, hail or shine.
Oh.
And look, it was not perfect. We had issues with sound, and so we were learning on the spot basically, but it was nice to see like our viewers actually were on that journey with us, and
yes,
and look, we're really encouraging, and it was great to see that they kind of felt like they were part of that with us. But it was great in terms of the awareness that we got out of it. And look, a lot of other people were doing tastings. There was a lot of that going on. But for us, we wanted to take that extra step and do it live. Like a lot of them were pre-recorded.
Pre-recorded, yeah.
And look, to be honest, I would have probably preferred to pre-record and have it, all nicely put together. But we understood that doing it live, you're going to get better reach through Facebook and Instagram. So we thought, let's just give it a go.
Let's just do it.
And look, one day the dog pretty much knocked over the tripod and things like that. It's, that was part of the fun of it, really.
Magic moments. That's the magic, that candid, authentic. It's just the blokes, it's or the blokes and whoever else was there. And when you say the team of four, I'm assuming that's the two boys, Dave and Ed, and the winemakers, is it?
The winemaker and the viticulturist.
And the viticulturist. And are they all guys or?
Yeah, all guys. And we would always make sure we'd have two. Because it is, look, honestly, it probably gets a bit boring watching one person talk about wine. You need that banter.
You need the banter. Yeah, I love it.
Discussion happening on camera. So we always had two of them. And we're lucky in the fact that all four of them speak very well on camera and have a good rapport with each other. And so it was great. And so I would be behind the camera and we used phones, and, at one point I would have 3 phones going live to Instagram and Facebook, and one for YouTube, just recording it for YouTube. And then I would read out the questions and we'd answer them real time. So we really encouraged people to send in their queries so that we could answer them on the spot. So it was a nice way to get that engagement going as well. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I love, and that's it. I think when the chips are down and you go, oh crap, we don't necessarily have anything to sell, and any I guess you've got something to sell, but we don't have the 2020 yield to sell. And potentially we're going into a situation where people might really pull back from buying wine, let alone all of the different services that we've had to cut out, like cellar door, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes all you can do is just show up for your community, which I think that's exactly what you've done. And that's, I think, the brands, they are the businesses who are going to weather this storm, because regardless of what else is happening, they're showing up for their community and they're nurturing those relationships. They're not just disappearing off the face of the earth and leaving it up to their customers and their tribe and their community to go, well, what happened to them? I haven't seen them for a while. Maybe they went out of business. Who knows? They're showing up, but taking it an extra level. So as you said, not just kind of keeping on going with the content, but actually showing up and going, yes, we're going to have this conversation and we're going to come to you raw and organically and show you behind the scenes, that's what people love. People love that shit on social media. Like, that's what actually creates the engagement. You showing up and the dog knocking over the tripod and everyone laughing and having a wine on a Friday afternoon. Like, that's exactly why people are there. They're not there to have, advertisements placed in their path every 5 seconds. So I think you've done such an amazing job of doing that, and hats off to you to coordinate 3 different mobile phones, 1 Instagram, 1 Facebook.
I know. If anyone's got the perfect app out there that can do that, I'm all ears. But,
wow.
Most of them need the laptop, and, we were working in places where coverage wasn't great, and, then we're working in an old apple packing shed, which we've converted to a bit of our cellar door at the moment, and one day it was absolutely pouring, so the sound was horrendous in the shed. So I'm standing out under an umbrella in the rain while the guys are sitting under cover. So anyway, we had many fun moments, but we also, like, I think by taking the risk of going live, we also managed to get some really good media out of it. So we were picked up by Broadsheet, Sydney Morning Herald, Good Weekend, and Tourism New South Wales picked it up as well.
Wow! And when you say picked up, what did they do?
Well, I mean, in terms of, they were like, these guys are doing live tastings, and you're actually seeing the winemaker.
So they were promoting it for
you.
Yeah.
So they were doing stories on us doing it.
Wow! So, and that's incredible.
Which was fabulous. It was great media, and it was purely because I think, there weren't many that were taking the risk of doing it live.
Yeah.
So, and, others, it was great to see. You started to build a really nice community around it, and those people are still incredibly loyal, the ones that, sort of discovered us during that time.
Right. Okay. So you had people discover you. It wasn't just people already in your community, like people came across you as well.
Yeah. And now they've become really great brand advocates. So
awesome.
Whilst it wasn't, if you sat down and planned that in a traditional marketing way, you would go, no, it's a bit risky. We need to have, some really
everything polished and
some scripts and Anyway, we sort of threw that to the wind, and we're like, we've got to do something. Let's get out there and do it. And it was really heartening and encouraging to see.
I love that. I love that story. And I think that's, I think if anything that 2020 has given us, it's that anything goes kind of thing. Like this. Absolutely. You can just show up with this stuff and people are all for it, because they're like, okay, yep, there's so many new things to embrace in this world. And good on you guys for being first to market with that and showing up in the right spot, because you chose the right channels to show up. You clearly picked a good time for people to kind of, enjoy that conversation and be in the right mind frame. It's 4:00 on a Friday, so they could, grab a wine themselves or whatever. So the timing and everything was perfect. You made sure that there was that energy on screen between the two presenters, and the authenticity of that just resonated throughout the social channels that you chose to show up on. So I think that's just brilliant. So my question is do you still do them? I mean, we're kind of still in COVID-ish. So do you still do them? And from that learning experience, like, how will you incorporate these, moving forward?
Yeah, look, great question. We've been discussing that as well. And look, during COVID, it was, I have to say, easy to do it because the cellar door was shut.
Yes.
We could all get together at a certain time and knew that people were at home at that time. So from that point of view, it was easy. Now that things are back up and running, we know people are out and about again. Well, New South Wales, except for poor Victoria at the moment. Yeah. But it's now harder really to get the team together. So we've been doing just a few. We're just going to pop up in your feed. Like I did a live feed from the cellar door the other day, just to talk about what wine was being, was popular the last couple of weekends. I just did one the other day where we were in the vineyard pruning some really young vines. So, showing people a bit of a how-to on how to prune young vines. So it may not be as scheduled, but we are very conscious that we don't want to not show up anymore. We've got to keep going and tapping into that. So we're looking at ways that we can probably do it on a more scheduled basis. And look, some may be pre-recorded just for the nature of it, because, trying to do a live from our winery with so much metal and not very good phone service is a bit tricky. So for some of that, we may pre-record. But I think everyone don't underestimate the power of just showing up live.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be polished. It's just,
prolific beats perfect.
Yeah. And, progress, not perfection. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, all the memes, people. It's all true. Write them on a post-it note, stick it on your notice board. Okay, I love it. Now, something that brings me much joy, got to say, as a small business owner, is I love seeing the marketing that comes out of Orange, and the surrounding areas. So even on this podcast alone, we've had the pleasure of speaking with Sophie Hansen from Local is Lovely, Holly Manning from Manning PR and Events. And just like yourself, these are kind of two regionally based businesses, and there's so more in Orange, and I want to get more of them on the podcast, who are just doing amazing things. And from the outside looking in, it just seems like Orange seems to be home to this incredibly energetic bunch of entrepreneurs who are just getting business and their marketing so right. And we spoke before about, being able to use nano influencers and micro influencers and the opportunity to kind of align with some of these businesses. Do you find that there is, first of all, an entrepreneurial kind of energy that resonates in Orange? And is this something that you do tap into to kind of and partnerships and sponsorships and not partnerships, partnerships and influencer marketing aside, do you find that there is that energy in Orange, and that as businesses you can kind of all kind of collaborate and work together, or even just tap into that kind of ambition?
Oh, look, Jane, we are so lucky in Orange. I don't know what it is, but there are just so many enthusiastic, talented people who are all willing to work together. It's quite amazing, really. And actually, I was just on a photo shoot with Soph Hansen the other day. So it does come back to, understanding there's so much talent out there, but you also have to form a relationship with them. You have to put some time into getting to understand them. And magic comes about when you just chat to these people, because you start to find opportunities and, just those little brainstorming moments, like, the chats in the corridor or over a coffee. Yes. It's amazing what ideas and collaborations can come about. But I think the important component of that is that you have to think about what you can bring to that partnership, what value you can add. Because, whilst it's great to find someone who's willing to partner, you've got to be very conscious that it is a partnership. You can't just tap into what they're offering. So, and then you get that mutual respect, and, it becomes an ongoing working relationship as well. Yeah. And look, I just find the people in Orange are really generous of spirit. Like there is this understanding that we do all want to promote the region together, and by working together, great things can be achieved. So it's incredible. And now that we've got some co-working areas, I actually think that they're facilitating some of these partnerships, because like-minded people who are working together now all in one spot, and renting space in there, and hot desking, and it's just conversations with someone you might meet who's hot desking next to you. Like, oh my God, I didn't know that was happening in Orange. How can we be part of it, or how can we help? So those water cooler conversations become a real thing when you've actually got all of you in this kind of same little zone. That's amazing. And I think it might not happen in every regional community, but I think that's part of the power of being within a regional community, because particularly if you can get a bunch of, ambitious, progressive thinkers on board, and like-minded but complementary, so if you're a vineyard and you've got a fantastic retail store there that sells online jumbled, you've got, Soph Hansen is a stylist, and she has all sorts of different products that you can tap into, and Hol's obviously a marketing agency. So you've got so many, and there's probably 100 more on that list as well. They're just the ones that I know about. So you've got all these different businesses who can all work together as a team to come together as one and promote the region. So how do you think other regionally based businesses can really amplify their efforts beyond their region and really galvanise,
a nationwide community. So looking to expand outside of their geographic boundaries.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the story that you tell. Take a risk and get your story out there. And if you can tell it from a different angle, it will get noticed. And look, I agree. I think in Orange, we're very lucky. We have a very proactive community that understands the value of working together to promote a region.
Yeah.
And yes, I recognise that potentially there are other regions that haven't sort of perhaps collaborated to that point. But I think if you can find collaboration within your community, and getting that extra reach from whatever story you're telling, undoubtedly you will get more interest and more focus. And I think whilst we do all focus on social media, I think don't forget about some of those traditional promotional, the old media release can go a long way as well.
Yeah.
And little tips like just always make sure you've got a landscape photo, and and forming relationships with journalists is very important as well. And also, like, there are organisations out there like Tourism New South Wales. They have some amazing resources that people can tap into.
Yeah.
And they can guide you. And if you do have a media release or a story about something going on in your region, they do help to amplify it and get it out there.
Yeah.
But also, I think for some things, don't be afraid to tell the bad news as well.
Yeah, right.
People, I think, get very nervous about that. And we ran into that situation. We knew we weren't going to have a vintage. So people were nervous about us telling that story because potentially it was negative for the region. But for us as a brand, sticking to just being authentic and honest, we felt we needed to tell that story. So we did put information out about it.
Yeah.
And look, it was a bit controversial, but we were just so amazed at the support that we received from it.
Yeah.
It really was so encouraging. And if anything, people turned around and went, oh my gosh, people around there are struggling. Let's go there and support them.
100%. And I was going to say, I don't know. I think it was that moment, like when must have come out via EDM, or whether it came out on social. I'm not sure how I actually got that message. But for me, it really, like, I went, okay, I know that the bushfires happen. I know that COVID's a thing, and I know how it affects my business. I know how it affects my client's business, but how it affects, other businesses, you don't really even think about it. And so for you to share that story, I was like, it endeared me to, you're a friend of mine, you guys are friends of mine anyway, but it endeared me to your brand, and it really did smack of that authenticity and honesty. But it gave me some perspective about your business as well. And for me, I was like, well, I'm joining your wine club because, I would much rather hop on board and support you guys than go to, the local chain of bottle shops that we've got here. Like, it's far more important, I think, to support small businesses. And sometimes you just forget that those small businesses are there. So for that story, it made it real to me, and I know you wouldn't have done it for sympathy, and I know you wouldn't have done it as a sales, thing to get people on, but it made me want to do that because I thought, well, I want to see this small business survive in this vineyard. I know how much work's gone into creating this business. Why wouldn't I get behind it in any way that I can? And I think sometimes people need a reminder because they see the glamorous, world of wine and champagne and awards, and maybe make assumptions that, you're doing okay. So I think I love that you're honest, and I love that you tell a slightly, and they're not necessarily negative stories. They're just real, This is what happens in business. So I love that. I think that's awesome. What do you love most about what you do?
Look, I love the flexibility. You never know. Every day is different. But also on the other side of that, you never switch off in a family business. It is all consuming, but you have to be quite disciplined to not talk about it at dinner and not talk about it as soon as you wake up in the morning. But it can be incredibly rewarding. If something does go right and you're getting good feedback, you're like, wow, okay, yeah, we did that. But also on the other hand, you feel every single bump in the road personally. And, that is harder than if potentially you're an employee in a business. Because you can't sort of switch off. You've got to dust yourself off, pick yourself up and keep going. So, but yeah, look, it is incredibly rewarding. And like you said, I get to work with wine. I can't complain too much.
Yep, I'm still with you.
Job.
I'm glad you said there's still time for me, Em. You're convincing me with every answer here. What about inspiration? Who do you look for inspiration for what you do?
I look overseas quite a lot, specifically for wine brands. I'm finding myself really looking at the Napa Valley cellar doors and things like that.
Interesting.
They're doing some good stuff over there. Like some of them are telling a great story, and again, it's not necessarily polished, but it's a great story. And for brands who don't have a big marketing team behind them, don't have a budget, I think you can probably get caught up going, oh, I can't put that out because it's not perfect. But it is more important to tell your story than to wait to have perfect creative to put out there. It's, you've got to, as you said, you've got to keep showing up. So I think in Napa they're doing, and one in particular, Jordan Winery is telling a great story. I do also look at some aspirational brands, because as you said, we have a Method Traditional sparkling range, which is, exactly the same way that champagne is made, but obviously we can't call it champagne.
Right.
So I look at some of their brands just to look at, how they treat that product. To be honest, sometimes I find it interesting how some of those big brands are quite lazy with the way that they
100%
tell their story.
Yeah.
I feel a bit bad saying that, but I do think that.
Yeah, I think that's industry wide. I don't think you should feel bad about that at all. I think sometimes they've just got too much money and they don't have to, they're complacent.
Yeah,
rest on their laurels.
There's complacency there. And I'll be interested to see when the younger generation who are wanting to form those attachments to brands mostly through social media.
Yeah.
I just wonder how those brands are going to come through in the next, 10 years when that age group is sort of now more their target market. Like, have they created that connection?
Yes.
So I do, I find that quite interesting. But I also think it's important not to look sideways. Don't always focus on say, the shop in the next suburb or the cellar door around the corner, to talk specifically about wine. I think you've always got to make sure that you're concentrating on your brand story, your strategy.
Yeah.
Look forward, don't look sideways, because I think you'll end up trying to keep up with the Joneses in a way, and you'll sort of go off sideways rather than being focused on your end game and staying true to your story. But it's such a great idea to get out there, have a look around, see what other people are doing. And it's not necessarily within, other Australian brands. Look overseas, see what's happening out there.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think that's great advice. What about when it comes to measurement? What are personally the key metrics that you look at to ascertain whether a particular marketing direction or activity or campaign is working?
Look, there's certainly the obvious ones, the sales online versus cellar door versus retailer, wine club versus a distributor. So they're, your base ones that we look at all the time. But we also I map our social media metrics every month. And yes, you do have to be disciplined to do that when, you're doing it in a small business. But it's so important to map out that
100%.
engagement and reach and your
Yes.
overall growth. Because looking at it, you're looking at it every day.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily seeing the trends.
I agree.
And you need to step back, map that out. And it's also encouraging because you can go back and go, actually, it's happening. We're growing.
Yeah.
And it will help you pinpoint those trends. What are the posts that are getting that greater engagement? And, now it's all about the saves, like who's saving that post that's going to get you the, wider reach. So think about the content you're putting out there that's going to get the greater saves and the forwards. And so, and, testing, how's your, Instagram TV going? And, and I think not staying on the same platforms all the time. I think LinkedIn is untapped for us.
100%.
I see a lot of potential there. So I'm wanting, to start to focus on that more.
And I would agree with you there. And it's funny that you mentioned that because just recently, I'm pretty sure I saw a Moet and Chandon sponsored campaign turn up in my feed. And then I also saw I think it was a fashion week or it was a fashion something that also, and I thought, yes, finally, like these B2C brands are recognizing that their target audience are sitting on LinkedIn. It's the professionals who have the disposable income, the desire, the aspirational lifestyles and all the rest. As long as the feed doesn't become clogged with irrelevant kind of, lifestyle ads. But they stopped me in my track because they were first to market. By the time all of the vineyards get in there, well, maybe it's a different story. But I think, for now, that would be such an awesome opportunity for a brand to, like yourselves, to actually get in there and make some impact. Because I think it's 100% a great spot and your target audience are 100% there. It's just making it relevant to the context of that platform, so turning up with the Friday night drinks on LinkedIn would be completely acceptable, I think.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's like, it's a bit untapped. Like I think people are just, if you're not spending time in LinkedIn, you're probably not sure about the value in it, but it is Monday to Friday, it is such a great resource to get in there. And for us, we've identified that we do need to, focus on that a lot more. So that's going to be something for the second half of this year that we're going to look at more. Don't just stay on the same old platform that you've been on, try new things.
Yeah. And so then your measurements, you are looking at that engagement, you are looking at the reach, you are looking to, to see if there's trends of reach and engagement and saves or whatever you're looking at there. And then I think what the wonderful thing about looking at that data alongside your sales data, depending on which channel they come through, and making that correlation between, when we show up on social media here, when we're regular with our EDMs, when we introduce something funky like the lives, that impacts this column over here where we're actually getting the sales. And it might not be an immediate month on month impact. Your reach for 1 month might not affect the sales for that much, but, month on month reach will eventually affect sales, maybe it's 3 months or 4 months down the track, depending on the cycle. So that's great. That's awesome. Now we've spoken about wine so much, and particularly if someone's listening to this at wine o'clock, they might wonder how they might find Printhie or even connect with you if they'd like to see more about what you do. Where can they find Printhie and yourself, Em?
Well, look, myself, I am on LinkedIn. I do quite like LinkedIn. So, yep, I'm on there.
As Emily Swift?
As Emily Swift. You shall find me there. Otherwise, Printhie Wines is the handle on Facebook and Instagram. We do have YouTube as well. You can, or our website. So, you can.
Awesome. Fantastic. Fantastic. And the website, of course, if you want to become a wine club member like myself, you can sign up there. So I get the 2-month delivery. I think I get 6 bottles of my choice delivered every 2 months, which I think really, if I'm realistic, that should really be happening every 2 weeks. We might have to rethink that model.
Might have to sort that one out.
Yeah. But that's awesome. Thank you so much. I loved that the insight that you shared. Again, you're very on brand, Em. I'm very impressed. That was very authentic and very honest, which I think is exactly what our listeners love to hear. But there was some absolute nuggets in there in terms of the way that you're bringing your marketing to life and how you're thinking outside of the square. And I love that you're tapped into such an amazing regional community there. I think there's so many regional communities and even cities that can learn from how Orange are really kind of amplifying the businesses within the region, which then in fact goes on to amplify the region itself. So well done to you all, well done to you, and I thank you very much for sharing all of that insight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jane. It's been a pleasure. It's been great chatting.
Interviews like that one are the reason that I do this podcast. I learn so much from the amazing marketers such as Em that I get to speak to in each episode of the How to Do Marketing show. I loved hearing about how Em used live social media videos as an innovative avenue to keep showing up for their loyal wine community during COVID. And the unexpected bonus of that leading to new customers discovering them. And then the icing on the cake, the statewide media coverage from Broadsheet and Sydney Morning Herald. It's amazing what can happen when we follow our intuition and we embrace a mindset that allows us to try new things. I also loved Em's approach to initiating conversations with potential business partners and approaching partnerships with empathy and generosity so that it's really clear to both parties involved that everyone will be a winner. Relationships are so important in everything that we do in business. So I hope you enjoyed that chat with Em. If you are enjoying all of the small business marketing insight that is being shared out on the show, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we'd love you to come and join us in the discussions about small business marketing in the How to Do Marketing group on Facebook. I'm in the group all the time answering people's questions and publishing snackable marketing tips. So join us. Just go to Facebook and search for the How to Do Marketing group. And if you'd like to sign up to receive regular small business marketing tips delivered straight to your inbox, just head on over to dragonflymarketing.com.au. Until next time, happy marketing.
You've been listening to another Morgan Media production.